Hello and welcome back to ParticularPixels. I'm Charling and this is Danger Zone. So Danger Zone was developed by Three Fields Entertainment, which is a team made up of a lot of the people who worked on the Burnout games and also the same team that brought us Dangerous Golf, which unfortunately didn't do too wonderfully in the reviews. Danger Zone is essentially a crash mode simulator, very similar to that which was present in Burnout Paradise and some of the other Burnout games, albeit a little bit simpler and I suppose a little bit less extravagant. The entire game takes place in an underground testing facility where you are tasked with driving your car into intersections of traffic and causing as much destruction and mayhem as possible. There are 4 tutorials in the game that introduce you to the basic mechanics of the game, after which you'll start the first test phase. Each test phase has up to 8 levels in it, and there are 3 test phases making up 24 levels in the game. In order to unlock the additional levels in the game, you will need to get certain ratings on particular levels, so that's bronze, silver, gold or platinum if you're good enough to get the high score there. Ratings are based entirely on the score that you manage to get at the end of each stage, and this is based on the damage that you do as well as the monetary pickups that you pick up on each stage. The levels themselves do get harder and more complex as you progress further into the game. Simple intersections to levels with multiple intersections, introducing corners and ramps and all that kind of thing, and more pickups that you have to collect. However, the premise of each of the stages remains pretty much the same, and that is to get the highest score possible by collecting as many of the pickups as you can, and as I mentioned earlier, to cause as much destruction as you can. The premise is relatively simple. So you will unlock your first Smash Breaker at 5 wrecks when you start each of the stages. The Smash Breaker ability essentially allows you to explode your car, causing damage to all of the cars around it. And at the same time, you'll be able to maneuver the wreckage of your car around the screen, trying to cause more damage, trying to land on groups of cars and collect more pickups and collect more Smash Breaker pickups. So you are going to need to learn what the best route through each stage is, where all the collectibles are, and more importantly, what your route of collecting these Smash Breakers are going to be, because they will be your only way of maneuvering around each of the stages. So you'll be jumping from pickup to pickup, collecting all the money bonuses, making your way to the next Smash Breaker pickup so you can continue guiding your car around, causing more destruction, collecting more pickups and destroying more cars. That is pretty much the gist of how this game is going to work. Once you've run out of Smash Breakers, there is going to be no way to move your car is going to come to a standstill, the stage will end and your score will be calculated. If your car falls off the edge of a road, referred to as de-resolution in the game, it will force you to restart. You won't get any score at all. So Danger Zone really is a game about restarting and replaying levels over and over to get a higher score than you did before, or if you're lucky enough to get your way to the top of the leaderboards. Runs can go wrong pretty easily. If you miscalculate your first collision, you may not even get your first Smash Breaker, and as a result you won't get anywhere and will have to restart the game. In order to get the really high scores in the game, you are going to need to look at each stage very carefully. As I mentioned before, you need to take note of where all these pickups are. You want to collect all of the money collectibles. You're going to have to get all of the Smash Breaker collectibles. In some stages there are groups of parked cars that you are going to want to destroy, as well as the cars that are coming out from all of the intersections. There is of course a degree of randomness because of the physics in the game, so even if you do the same thing twice, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will get the same result, which may force you to restart. Thankfully though, the loading times between retries is relatively quick, but I will say I did notice very little difference when loading the game from a normal hard drive versus my SSD. Unfortunately though, you do still have to sit through short loading screens and a countdown every single time you start, and honestly after the nth time you're playing a stage, you may even wish it was a little bit faster than it actually is. The gameplay loop itself for the most part is pretty enjoyable. You will find yourself retrying the stages over and over to beat your previous score. It does have that just one more try feeling to it. However, there are a few issues with the game that I have to mention. The camera is the first one. When you initially start driving, there's no free camera, so you're stuck behind your car. More importantly though, is that once you activate the Smash Breaker, you can only rotate the camera on the X-axis. There's no way to look up or down, and that is a little bit odd indeed. Now you might be wondering, why is this a problem? And the reason is this. Once you explode your car, it goes up in the air, and if you are trying to land on specific pickups like money pickups or your Smash Breaker pickups, there's no way to look down. So very often you will land next to it or just out of range of it because you can't accurately look down to tell where you're going to land next. If you're trying to collect the smash breaker pickups and you land next to it and there are no cars to bump you that 1 centimeter further, you are going to come to a standstill, and that is going to be the end of your run. And it can actually be quite frustrating because it's no fault of your own. It's a fault of the game not allowing you to see where you are going to land. I think that being able to freely look around would have alleviated this issue. So why this is not an option is a little bit odd indeed. The other big issue I have with the game is the sameness of the environment. The entire game takes place in an underground testing facility, as I mentioned before, so basically the entire game looks aesthetically the same. For the first 2 hours it's fine, but once you're getting past that, every level seems to be the same, just with some slight variation in the layout of the roads. I did start to long for some clear blue sky eventually. The game almost starts to feel a little bit claustrophobic. I do understand though that the team behind the game is a pretty small indie studio, so of course there are budget restraints and manpower restraints and all that kind of thing. However, I think that the lack of environmental variation is very, very disappointing. They could have at least had 1 or 2 or even 3 different variations of set pieces where you were driving, so it didn't feel the same so often. Also, there is no music in the game, so it can feel a little bit quiet at times. Performance-wise though, the game runs silky smooth, never dropped below 100 frames a second on maximum detail, even with all the crazy explosions going on everywhere, unlike Dangerous Golf, which had its fair share of odd performance hiccups, but thankfully none of those are present in Danger Zone. The controls for the most part worked fine as well. I played the game with the gamepad, but neither the keyboard or the gamepad controls are customizable, and the game doesn't actually tell you what the keyboard controls are, so when you first start playing you're going to have to work them out for yourself. I think it would have been nice if the game actually showed you what the keys were. Not a serious issue, but just something I thought I should mention. I did, however, find myself losing interest after a few hours, just not being inspired to carry on. Now, I'm not saying by any means that Danger Zone is a bad game. It is enjoyable for a while, but for me the thrill of the crashes and the destruction here just lacked something that I thought was present in the Burnout Paradise crash mode, in my opinion. Perhaps it was a lack of visual variety, or the lack of a truly free camera. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I didn't find this to be quite as rewarding or quite as engaging as the crash mode in the Burnout Paradise game that I played. Now, don't misunderstand me, as I said before, Danger Zone is not by any means a bad game. It is a competent crash mode simulator that has you competing for high scores. So I'll say that if you like repeating the same levels over and over to beat your previous scores, or if you like trying to compete to get nice leaderboard positions and are happy with the fact that the game is basically a one-trick pony, then you are very likely to enjoy what's on offer here, because there are 24 stages here to dig your teeth into. On top of that, Danger Zone is not overly expensive. However, if you're not the kind of player I just described above, I'd highly recommend that you wait for a sale to pick up the game. It will provide you with a few hours of fun, but be warned, it may not hold your attention for as long as you'd expect. But it is enjoyable while it lasts. Anyway guys, that's been a look at Danger Zone. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, you can leave them in the section below. If you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon so you do get updates when I release new content. And share it on social media. If you did enjoy it, it does help out the channel a great deal. And finally, if you guys enjoyed the video, give it a like. And if you didn't, well, of course, there's always the dislike button as well. Thanks for watching guys. I've been Xiaoling. Until next time.